being as though I am a self-proclaimed horror movie buff, not just a movie buff, but horror movies, that is the ultimate genre for me. And, being as though I'm a horror movie buff, self-proclaimed and all that good stuff, one of the things I appreciate like the hell out of in a decent horror movie is, the practical effects, the magic tricks, as Tom Savini once called it in an interview. I don't remember if it was an interview or a documentary, but I do remember him saying that special effects in horror movies are magic tricks, and the people that create those effects are the magicians, and us as the audience members, whether we're savvy to it or not, so a lot of times we do wonder how they did that, or how that appliance stays on, or how the animatronics work. Just the mechanics of practical effects in horror movies, gore effects and stuff like that. It's it's a true testament to, the blood, sweat and tears that these guys put into these effects, man. They spend hours and hours in these trailers or wherever they construct these masterpieces, basically, man. But one of the things that pisses me off as a horror buff also, is our good friends, the MPAA. And nobody knows what that means. That means, Motion Picture Association of America. But I will say this, without the MPAA, we would not have ratings for our favorite movies, or even the bad movies that we love to hate. We would not have certain theatrical releases. Like, for example, if a movie has an X rating, when they submit it to the MPAA, they can't release that film until they trim it down just enough so that it can receive its R rating. Anything else after that is not getting a theatrical release at all. And, if, as filmmakers, big time or, humble beginners, whatever, you do want a theatrical release. That's a dream for a lot of filmmakers. If I ever was to make a movie, I would want to start off small, but I want to get there. I would want to have something, definitely have a big theatrical release, opening night type of thing, the whole shebang. So we do kind of need the MPAA, man, but I'm sorry, man, these guys are assholes up there. They really are, man. And one of the things I wanted to talk about in this episode, and I'm going to give 5 examples of this, is, I want to talk about 5 movies that the MPAA just completely skewered as far as the practical effects go, man. And it's actually both informative and depressing to know about, because the movies I'm about to mention here, I could have mentioned a lot more, but there were 5 movies in particular that stood out, where when you got the theatrical cut of these films, they're just so tame compared to the original, the original, either like work print version or director's cut, whatever you want to call it, man. The final product is, it doesn't make these movies bad in any shape, way, or form. It just makes them very tame, and it really sucks to know that these guys, these, whether it's one person, of course, most of the time it's several, it's a whole team of special effects people. It just sucks to know that they do so much hard work for these practical effects, man, these gore effects, whatever you want to call it, man. They put so much effort and time into it just for us fans, man, just for the audience to love. And here comes the MPAA, like, listen, you have to cut 20 minutes of this shit, of all this gore, so we can give you an R rating and a theatrical release. And it's just, I understand this, the business side of things. I'm pretty sure the MPAA has people they have to answer to, because at the end of the day, most of the time in the film industry, you're kind of like the man sitting next to the man sitting next to the man. So I'm pretty sure that they have to be a little, vicious in their, in their execution of giving movie ratings. But these movies I'm about to talk about, man, it's just no excuse for the gore that was cut out of this these movies in particular. And before I start off, I probably will be tagging these people mentioned if they do have social media, but big shout out to them, man. The ones I'm about to mention that were part of these special effects for these films. And hopefully one day, whatever movies I'm about to mention don't have a director's cut available or something like that. Hopefully with the releasing of the Snyder cut, hopefully that doesn't just do great things for DC and comic book movies in general, but just hopefully it opens up doors for filmmakers in general to, maybe get their cuts of the movie, whether it be a horror movie, whether it be, an action movie, whatever the case may be. But in this case, I hope they get versions where their gore, their practical effects, their special effects are included, man, because they do really, really great work. Now, First movie I want to talk about is, I want to get this out of the way because this, unfortunately, there is almost no chance at all. Like, there is not a snowball's chance in hell we will ever get, a final cut or director's cut of this movie. One, the director has since passed away, fairly recently passed away, but it's to my understanding that the gore scenes in this movie, whatever reels or film footage they had for the gore scenes in this movie were destroyed at Paramount. So that we will never get a version of this movie with the gore bits inside of it. But you can catch them on YouTube, and it's actually really depressing to watch considering what they were trying to do here. And the movie I'm talking about is Friday the 13th Part 7, The New Blood. Now, this movie came out in 1988. Now, first of all, we already know. Let's talk about the history of the franchise gore, because you have 6 movies at this point going into a number 7, and Friday the 13th was really one of those series that the MPAA kind of had it out for. And I feel like Part 5 was really the start of when the MPAA really started to shit in their cereal, and theirs meaning the filmmakers of the Friday the 13th movies, Sean S. Cunningham, Frank Mancuso, all the people involved. The MPAA really had it out for them because, Friday the 13th was known for its creative and shocking kills and stuff like that. And you can kind of tell, the first 4 movies are, I'm pretty sure they trimmed it just a tad bit. Even the original Friday the 13th movie, which I did commentary for, y'all can check that out if y'all want. But they trimmed a few seconds from each kill in the movie. And if it wasn't each kill, I definitely know it was Robbie Morgan's kill in the beginning. It was Kevin Bacon's kill. And it was the chick that played Marcy. They trimmed a few seconds, only a few seconds. But for the most part, you still get to see those Tom Savini effects. Now, part 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 5, they really... the death scenes aren't great in Part 5, with the exception of a few, but for the most part, it's very tame, it's very trimmed down. But by the time you get to Part 7, you bring in John Carl Buechler, who is very much a horror effects type of guy. Now, prior to him jumping on board for Friday the 13th 7, he had done films, practical effects for movies like Trancers, Ghoulies, the first Troll movie From Beyond, and recently, before he did Friday the 13th Part 7, he did a movie called Prison, which actually him and Kane Hodder worked together for. So it was good for them two to come back and work on Friday the 13th Part 7. But the gore bits that, John Carl Buechler presented in this movie, man, they're amazing. And, if you watch, there's a documentary on the making of Part 7. And if you watch it, you can hear how passionate he is about, he's like laid back passionate about the gore effects and what he really was looking for as far as this movie goes. Because this movie, the footage that you see, if you do look it up on YouTube for the missing parts, to say the least, it's way gorier, way nastier than the previous movie. Like Part 6 was really campy, but it wasn't really bloody per se. You got a lot of fucking gore bits in that stock footage of the practical effects John Carl Buechler did for Friday the 13th 7. You've got like the character of Ben, you got Jason literally crushing his head, as John Carl Buechler said, into the size of a walnut. And it's just like, it's nasty. He crushes his head all the way down, like he just smushes it into a bloody pulp. You got someone getting their face split open with an axe, and you kind of linger on the shot for a little bit while the character's twitching. That girl who gets killed in the sleeping bag, that death scene that everybody adores and everybody loves in Friday the 13th Part 7, she originally, I feel like it's more effective when she gets, when he swings her into the tree just one single time. It's like a kill shot. But Jason originally swung her into that tree about several times. And, it's a big splash of blood coming out of the sleeping bag and all this other shit. There's a lot of gore here, man. And basically the finished product was probably one of the most tame Friday the 13th movies as far as the kills go, since Part 5. And the movie doesn't suck. The movie, I think it's the most underrated movie in the original series. But, to have John Carl Buechler present these type of effects for a Friday the 13th movie, and I really want to go the extra mile and say this probably would have been the most violent Friday the 13th movie up until Jason Goes to Hell. Even the theatrical cut for Jason Goes to Hell, it's got some really, really crazy special effects in it that KMB did, by the way. But the movie is so tame. The kills are they're really cut short. A lot of one of the kills are off screen, and they made it so that it was off screen when originally they filmed her death, and it was supposed to be really, really gory, really crazy, really brutal. And that would have been crazy to see because it's a character who, she's kind of mousy and she's like the nerdy girl, and you kind of feel bad for her when she gets killed, and how she goes about getting killed. She goes in the woods to find that guy or whatever the case may be. But yeah, man, it's just really sad that we'll never get to see those kills in a final director's cut, because like I said, John Corbuckler is no longer with us, and the footage was destroyed. Why they destroyed this footage, I have no fucking idea, man. That was probably one of the dumbest things somebody could ever do, and part of me really feels like I don't like getting on my conspiracy theory shit, but I feel like that was a sabotage plot. Why is it that I don't think that's ever been heard of for a Friday the 13th movie? Not part 5, not part 8, not Jason Goes to Hell, not Jason X, whatever. No footage has ever been destroyed to the point where we'll never get that cut. It's so strange to me, man. I feel like somebody set out to literally sabotage that film, man. And maybe it was an MPAA mole. I don't know if somebody was getting a check, getting paid off to, destroy that footage. I don't know, man, but fuck you to whoever did that. And, if they have since passed away, then I take that back 100%. But fuck the idea of, destroying that footage, man, because John Cole Buechler definitely deserved his vision on screen, and the movie deserved a lot better, man. It's a Friday the 13th movie, so I feel like, it's a disservice to the fans when you take away one of the main things we're going there to see. We're going there to see Jason. The characters are a plus at this point. You're 7 movies in, the characters are added bonus. We just want to see how they're going to die. And that is another main thing we're going for, is the kills. And just sucks that we couldn't get to see it, man. Now, number 2 on this list is something I almost did commentary for this, and is one of the things that actually triggered this episode, because there's commentary on the DVD, and they're talking about all the things that were taken out of, the theatrical version. There is an unrated cut. Luckily, I'd have that DVD also, but the unrated cut is definitely way better, but for some strange reason, the theatrical cut works just as good. And I'll get to why it works in a second. But the movie I'm talking about, that's number 2, is Leatherface Texas Chainsaw Massacre 3, which came out in 1990. Now, let's talk about the history of the franchise gore for a second. While I am going to talk about how the gore should have made it into this film, there's this misconception that the Texas Chainsaw Massacre is one of the goriest, nastiest movies ever made. It's really not. And I don't know I don't know if it's the title that's just off-putting, or if it's, how people talk about the movie like it's a campfire story or something like that. But there's a lot of shit that's left to the imagination in that movie, whether it be Terry McMinn getting put on a hook. You don't see her get put on a hook. You don't see, like in the remake, you don't see the hook go into her back. Franklin, I can't remember the actor's name, but the guy that plays Franklin in the wheelchair, you see the little splash, little splashes of blood going Leatherface's face when he when he kills Franklin with the chainsaw, and he's tearing his ass up with that chainsaw. But you don't see it. There is a scene where the guy Kurt gets killed, and you see his character get hit in the head, and you hear it, and it is nasty. But for the most part, it's really it's create what you want to create in your head. Create how you think that murder went down or something like that. It's not a gory movie at all. It's just the imagery, if anything, and the execution just makes it really really vicious, man. And when we got to the second movie, you bring along someone like Tom Savini, where he really let it rip. I'm talking like there's a scene where Dennis Hopper sees the wall bleeding and he kicks it open. And, when he kicks the wall open, just guts and guts and guts and just meat, nasty, nasty shit spills clean out of the wall. And it's literally it's gory as hell. They really let it rip on Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2. I'm cool with that. I'm perfectly fine with that, because I feel like with a movie of that caliber, with especially with that title and just the character of Leatherface alone and the idea of the family, you need that in a Texas Chainsaw Massacre movie. I don't mind them being gory as hell. I really truly don't. So 1990 comes along and you bring in K and B, for the special effects for Texas Chainsaw Massacre 3. K and B, up until this point, they've really started off small. They helped out a lot with Tom Savini back in the day, which I didn't know. They helped Tom Savini do the effects for Day of the Dead. They did practical effects for Evil Dead 2, Creepshow 2, Phantasm 2, Nightmare on Elm Street 5, Halloween 5. They had been around for a really long time, making a name for themselves in horror, which was a great thing, man. And anybody that, by the way, that doesn't know K and B, that group consists of Greg Nicotero, Robert Kurtzman, and Howard Berger. Now it was either Robert Kurtzman or Howard Berger. Don't quote me on this, but one of them, I cannot remember which of the two, actually directed the Wishmaster movie, the very first movie, which they also did, special effects for as well. But up until that point, like I said, they were making a name for themselves. So the gore bits in the movie were, in the unrated version, the gore bits, it's not like Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2 where it's just disgustingly nasty. The gore bits are probably meant to be, I got to use the word again, vicious for the most part. You see Joe Unger's fingers get blown off when Ken Foray starts shooting up the fucking, shooting up the family house and, with the machine gun. You do see the mom get shot. You see a couple squib hits. There's gore that they really did. The MPAA really didn't even have to take out because it's really nothing compared to what they did in the second movie. There are some parts where there's a scene where William Butler's character is strung up and they're doing like this homage to the actual Ed Gein crime scene photo of when he actually murdered that woman, cut her head off and just, slit her down the middle. And, her body's hanging upside down. There's a scene where they pay homage to that where William Butler's hanging upside down and, they pull the string on a sledgehammer and it swings and smacks him in the side of the head, to let the blood drip into the bucket. But even that scene, I feel like the MPAA was just really, really being petty with the shit that they cut out of this movie, man, because it really, the funny thing about the Texas Chainsaw Massacre 3, the gore that the MPAA cut out, I feel like little did they know that the movie still works. Yes, the movie doesn't get the critical acclaim that it should. It's probably my favorite sequel in the original series, and it's probably the most underrated entry. It's got crazy continuity in it. Leatherface is a badass in it. Ken Foray is a badass. You got young Viggo Mortensen, Joe Unger, Kate Hot. Like, the movie's just underrated as fuck all around. But the MPAA, they kind of, for me personally, they kind of shot themselves in the foot by cutting out the gore because the movie's still as effective. But, excuse me, I do feel like, K&B, as far as what they did, they got fucked over in the deal because they spent hours and hours and hours on these great effects, man. And for them to be the up and comers at the time, still making a name for themselves in the horror genre and in horror cinema, I just, is for people to be this talented and, not be able to convey their talents the way they want to because of something like a place like the MPAA, it just really bothers me, man. But like I said, the movie's still effective. They did cut out some nasty gore. I think one of the nastiest bits that they cut out of Texas Chainsaw Massacre 3 was probably Viggo Mortensen's original death scene, which it was deleted. It's not in the unrated version, but it is in the special features and the deleted scenes. And I think after he gets set on fire and blows up near the truck after fighting with Ken Foray's Benny character, he attacks Kate Hodge's Michelle character, I think, and he hits one of the tripwires, and that trap, it's like a wooden trap that just swings at him, that Ken Foray was looking at earlier, swings and just, smashes him in the chest. And first of all, he's all burnt the fuck up. He's just like bloody burnt up. And then when he gets that, that booby trap slammed into his body, he's just like spitting out blood and shit like that. It's probably, I really want to say it's one of the nastier scenes in the movie. There was also, now that I'm thinking about it before I move on, there's a character I can't remember the girl's name, but the girl Ken Foray finds in the woods, and he's smoking a cigarette with her. Originally, she was going to be like, she was really going to get the business. Leatherface was going to, saw into her stomach, and you were going to get a shot of behind the tree. Like, she's basically getting impaled with this chainsaw and just torn apart, and her arms are flailing all over the place. MPAA wasn't going for that shit. It's bullshit, man. Have you guys no balls at all? Because I'm really starting to think so. And this is, what's crazy is that the MPAA, a lot of horror movies get away with murder now. You look at a movie like Planet Terror or Slither or even something like The Mist, where the theatrical cuts are just gruesome, just gore, 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 and more gore. And, movies like this back in the day, like in the 80s and the early 90s, they just got skewered. That's it, man. But shout out to K&B, man. They did a hell of a job with the effects on Texas Chainsaw Massacre 3. Now, moving on to number 3 is, God damn it, man. This is definitely one of my more, this one makes me sad, man, because it's one of my favorite top 5 remakes of all time. It's a remake of my favorite movie of all time, and it's got a really underrated cast. It's got a really underrated, underappreciated depiction of zombies, of the undead. Never have I ever seen zombies like this on screen to this day. And I'm talking about Night of the Living Dead, the 1990 remake. And of course, the history of this franchise gore, man. Night of the Living Dead is another one of those movies where there's a misconception. There is violence in this movie, so much so that I remember back on the VHS tapes, it used to say this is not for the squeamish. It would have warning labels on it and shit like that. But they're really, there are scenes that are vicious. Johnny Russell Striner getting his head bashed into the tombstone, Ben, clubbing, zombies in the head with crowbars and shit repeatedly. But then you have that notorious scene where, Tom and Judy blow up in the truck, and then we finally realize why these zombies, these dead people are, coming back to life. I know they do say it on the radio announcements and stuff like that, but we actually get to see it when the dead are eating, body parts. They're eating livers, they're fighting over intestines and shit like that. But the movie's not anywhere near as violent as something like Dawn of the Dead or Day of the Dead. Dawn of the Dead broke new ground when Tom Savini jumped on board, and, he introduced us to bites, zombie bites that we had never seen on screen before. And that kind of transitioned to, also in headshots. Tom Savini can really create some crazy ass headshots when these zombies get hit in the head, whether it be whether it be a pistol, whether it be a hunting rifle, the shit, it really, it hits, man, even for a movie that came out in 1978. And like I said, the bites kind of transitioned onto Day of the Dead, where Day of the Dead, this is a movie where I think Tom Savini really established himself as a special effects, extraordinaire, because there's a lot of gore effects in Day of the Dead, man. Lots of bites, lots of headshots, lots of things, man. But one of the things that I'm pretty sure, like myself, everybody remembers from Day of the Dead is Joe Pilato's Captain Rhodes character getting torn in half, like while he's still alive, literally getting torn the fuck in half, man. It's absolutely insane. And I feel like, that's not only did it was like bittersweet, because Tom Savini had established himself as one of the greatest special effects masters in the world. But I feel like the MPAA probably was like, you know what? He's coming in to direct Night of the Living Dead. We already know what this guy can do. We know what he's about. So we got to keep tabs on the shit he's trying to do. Because of course the Dead movies, those 3 movies in particular, they were the only ones to come prior to Night of the Living Dead 1990. Day of the Dead had, some years had passed. Day of the Dead came out in 86. But I feel like when Tom Savini came into the mix, he was already known for Dawn of the Dead, Day of the Dead, Friday the 13th Part 4, Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2, Maniac, The Burning, The Prowler, Creepshow. He was known, man, and gore effects is what he does. He does that shit for real, and he makes it count, and he's great at it. So I feel like he kind of already had a bullseye on his back, in multiple ways. People, of course, were just like, well, why are you remaking Night of the Living Dead? Why would you even do that? And why is he directing it and George A. Romero isn't? George A. Romero's only writing it? Oh, and I'm pretty sure the MPAA on the other side of things, they had a target on them, and they were like, listen, we got to make sure this is trimmed down and all this other shit. Now, The gore bits I think you can see on YouTube as well. I'm pretty sure that's where I saw them. It was some type of video where they were showing, the work print version. And the crazy thing about the gore effects in the Night of the Living Dead remake is the fact that these effects are nowhere near as graphic as the effects that were in the previous movie, that were in Day of the Dead. Yeah, we do get we get a nice exploding head when William Butler is in the back of the truck. He shoots that zombie with a shotgun. And, in the finished product, you don't even see it. You just see him shoot the shotgun. You get some squib hits to the body, some squib hits to the head. Squib hits, if anybody doesn't know what they are, those are the the effects to make it look like someone got shot. And they do, squib hits off the actual skin, through the clothes, in the head type of shit. There's gore, but I feel like it was done tastefully, respectfully, because, Tom Savini didn't want to, he didn't want to step on the toes of the original movie any more than he already had to. So the gore is tastefully done, in my opinion. But what we get, and again, this is something that I feel like the MPAA, it came back to bite them in the ass, because they cut out so much gore that Tom Savini and his crew did for Night of the Living Dead. And the movie, as tame as that movie is, and coming off something like, coming off the heels of something like Day of the Dead, where it was groundbreaking gore, the movie, while being so tame, still holds up, and it works just as well. It is not one of my favorite remakes, for no reason. And I feel like the movie, while I do feel bad that they didn't get a chance to put the gore in, the movie still functions as one of the best zombie movies ever made, man. Because sometimes you don't need the gore. Like, implication is enough, man. That's why movies like The Exorcist 3 work well without a lot of violence. That's why movies like Seven work well without a lot of violence. It's all implication, and it leaves you to your imagination to think how the effect would have played out or something like that. And I don't know about y'all, but my imagination's a crazier place than the shit that I can see on screen. Probably shouldn't have said that. I'm dropping too many gems right now. But yeah, man, big shout out to Tom Savini for one, delivering that movie and having a great underrated cast, delivering those zombies, but just for the special effects that went into that movie. And I hope that version comes out, because while the movie is tame and I do enjoy it, I love the shit out that movie, I would like to see the effects just fully in the full gory glory. I would love to see it play out one day. Who knows? Maybe Tom Savini will do it as a George A. Romero tribute. I don't know. I hope I didn't just put a lot of pressure on him if he hears it, because I'm probably going to tag him to this post too, or this episode rather. Now, 2 more left. I feel like I'm running out of breath here. This is what happens when you're asthmatic, people. But let's keep rocking with the zombies for a second and move on to number 4, which is, I just recently watched this as well, did commentary for it also. Y'all can check that out. One of our earlier episodes when I don't think I was as seasoned, not to toot my own horn, but Return of the Living Dead 3, which came out in 1993. Now, this hurts, because the first version of Return of the Living Dead 3 that I saw as a kid was the unrated version. And this fucking movie has some of the best effective gore in a zombie movie, and it's not too over the top. I don't even understand, with the shit that we've seen in the first movie and the second movie, why would this gore be just completely cut out of the movie? Like, they trimmed it down so much so. And yes, the theatrical cut does bother me, because that was the first version I saw, was the unrated version, and I'm used to a certain level of gore in this movie. Unfortunately, when I bought Return of the Living Dead 3 on DVD, it was the theatrical cut. So it's really difficult for me to watch it without expecting certain gore scenes to pop up, because it has some really, really great fucking gore effects, man. If anybody has not seen the unrated version of Return of the Living Dead 3, I strongly recommend it, man. You will not be disappointed at all. Whether the movie, it's another underrated zombie movie. It's basically Romeo and Juliet with fucking zombies. I love it. Now, one of the things about Return of the Living Dead 3, there's a lot of people that did practical makeup effects and stuff like that for the movie. So I only took the time out to acknowledge 2, and no disrespect to the rest of the people that worked on the movie, but the 2, I'm pretty sure people are way more familiar with. So I stuck with those 2. Now, those two guys are Steve Johnson and Wayne Toth. Wayne Toth has done effects for movies like Nightmare on Elm Street 4, Halloween 4, Bride of the Reanimator, Guyver, which is a crazy underrated superhero movie, Army of Darkness. Steve Johnson has worked on, I'm pretty sure he had I think it was uncredited, but he's worked on Predator, the first Predator movie, Nightmare on Elm Street 4, The Howling 4 and 6, Leviathan, which is another underrated as sci-fi creature feature. And it didn't even dawn on me that Steve Johnson not only worked on Leviathan, but he worked with the late, great Stan Winston on that movie. So rest in peace, shout out to him as well. But, you know, the crazy thing about this is that the first Return of the Living Dead movie is not, while it's not super, super violent, I feel like when the gore happens, they make it count. You know, Tarman biting into somebody's head, you can see the insert shot of him biting Suicide, Mark Venturiti, RP, shout out to him. You can see Tarman bite into Mark Venturiti, his character Suicide, into his head. You know, you see that shit. They don't shy away from it. You see that shit in the theatrical cut. You know, you see Brian Peck get his skull bitten into and just a fountain of blood just shooting out on some Kill Bill type shit. You know, there's a half corpse woman biting into his head. You know, you see a fully naked Linnea Quigley dancing on top of a tombstone. Then you see her turn into a zombie, just running around everywhere naked, just biting people in the face and shit. And the second movie does have its gore bits. It has some really nasty gore bits where, you know, people are getting their brains eaten out, brains stretched out all over the place. It's nasty. And some of the zombie effects are nasty as well. You get a severed head getting stabbed in the ear with a screwdriver, which just dawned on me probably is, go figure, a Dawn of the Dead reference. But you also get a zombie, you know, in part 2, you get a zombie that's been blown in half with a shotgun trying to catch, you know, his upper or his lower torso, which is just walking around aimlessly. So at this point, it was, you know, the series wasn't any stranger to gore effects, man. Of course, it's a fucking zombie movie. What do you expect? You gotta have gore. You gotta have nasty zombies. Now, the gore bits in this movie, man. Again, shout out to Steve Johnson, Wayne Toth, and the rest of the people that worked on Return of the Living Dead 3, man. But when I was a kid and I saw this movie, not only did I have my second zombie crush, who was Melinda Clarke's character, Julie, but these effects, man, some of them really truly are amazing. And you would think that these effects were something that Tom Savini did. One in particular, man. It's just certain hints. I feel like a lot of special effects people might borrow from each other, but they put their own twist and their own flair on it, which I can appreciate, man. You know, each one teach one type of thing. But the gore effects in this movie, you do get some nasty shit, man. You get bitten off fingers, nasty bites. One of the most memorable, which I said it was a Tom Savini type of effect. It's I can't remember the guy's name, but his name is what is his name? Felipe in the movie. And Julie's like fucking him up in the sewer. She's beating the shit out of him, stabbing him, and she goes in to bite his lip. And when she pulls away with the lip still, you know, being bitten down on, his lip just stretches to the point where it snaps off, and you see they reveal his lower jaw. You know, you can see his skeletal lower jaw. Is one of the nastiest, most shocking effects of the entire movie. There's a guy who gets his head ripped off, but his spine is still, you know, spine's still attached, and he's just walking around with his spine in the air. I don't know if Dead Alive did it first, but they did the same thing with that fat asshole character. He gets his head pulled off, but his spine's still attached, and you know, he's just walking around looking like a zombified dinosaur or some shit like that. You get some really nasty effects, man. You get some really effective gore bits with Julie when she's, you know, before she makes her crazy, you know, goth pierced up transformation, which low key is attractive in that movie. She's kind of like trying to suppress the pain so she doesn't, you know, eat anybody else. So she's like, she takes a button off of her leather jacket. It's like a pin or something like that. She starts stabbing the inside of her hand with it. And it looks like Melinda Clarke is really stabbing into her hand. It's one of those cringeworthy moments, for sure. Then there's another scene where she's yet again trying to suppress her cravings for brains. And she grabs a rusty ass spring off the dirty ass ground when they're on the street somewhere in some alleyway. And she like starts twisting it and like making it coil into her skin, and they linger on the shot. And it's things like that, man. Just the whole piercing aspect that she does just to suppress her, her cravings and shit like that. It's nasty, man. It's cringeworthy. It's not even the movie itself, the theatrical version or the unrated version. It's not even really just, it's not the goriest movie I've ever seen. Like when the gore, being as though it's in context, it works because here you have a main character who has to inflict pain upon herself and, so she won't kill her boyfriend and kill other people because she's done it before. But the zombie effects, like you got character corpses, if you will, and it's, the zombie effects are great, but there's not a lot of shit in the movie that for them to have to trim that entire movie down, because there are gore sequences you don't even see in the theatrical cut, and it's a slap in the face, man. Like that scene I was talking about where the guy Felipe gets his lip completely torn off and you see his jaw. That scene, that's probably one of the most shocking gore scenes in the movie, like I said, but it's not enough. It's not like we get moments like that in a movie time and time and time after another. We don't, because there is actually some decent acting and decent storytelling in Return of the Living Dead 3, and you don't really get that in a lot of third entries in horror franchises. So I feel like the MPAA really, this is one of those cases where I wish every cut was the unrated version, because it hurts to watch. Something like Night of the Living Dead, it fully functions without the gore, unfortunately and fortunately. But something like Return of the Living Dead 3, it's like, no, it doesn't take away from the experience. I still love the movie, but fuck you, MPAA, because Return of the Living Dead 3 is low-key one of my favorite zombie movies, and those effects, man, I needed that, man. Y'all didn't have to do that to Return of the Living Dead 3. Now, again, I should have brought my damn inhaler down here, but we are at number 5, people. We are at the end of the road, and number 5 is actually, I didn't even do this in chronological order for the most part. Well, I low-key did up until this point. This should have been my number 1 because it came out first out of all the movies that were on the list. It came out in 1981. And this is a movie where, there's rumors saying that we are going to get a full unrated cut of this movie. I do have the DVD. Unfortunately, I saw that shitty remake first. So I'm like, okay, let me go back and grab the original and watch it and appreciate the source material if I can, which I did. It's still a great, unique slasher, 80s slasher. And of course, I'm talking about My Bloody Valentine. Now, excuse me. There's really no history of franchise gore to go back on. This was an original property. Paramount was, they were coming out with all of these, they were, April Fools and Friday the 13th. They were coming out with these specific dates, as far as the slasher movies go. And it was Valentine's Day's turn to, be next on the chopping block. And, like I said, there's no backstory to jump in on, but, the guy that did this, one of the guys that did the special effects for My Bloody Valentine is Thomas R. Berman, and I was not familiar with this guy at all. And he's done work prior to My Bloody Valentine. He's done work on Planet of the Apes, the Island of Dr. Moreau, Close Encounters of the Third Kind, and Invasion of Body Snatchers, which is one of my favorite remakes of all times. Creepy as shit. So safe to say the guy knows what he's doing, man. He's worked on some really, really big projects, just like for the time that they came out, and movies that are considered classics that definitely still hold up to this day. So for him to jump on a slasher was, seemed like it was a pretty cool idea back then. And, the gore bits we got in that movie, they don't really, there's an unrated, version, but the gore bits don't sync up well into the movie in its entirety, because basically when a kill happens, the way the shots transition into the gore shots, you can clearly see that the gore bits are from the work print version that was cut out. It's two different films. It looks completely different. Like the film will look one way, and then when a kill happens, you cut to what looks just like the work print version, and it's just two different tones entirely. So I can't wait for them to release like a Blu-ray or something like that, where they just integrate everything so that it just looks like one movie, and it looks like it just looks fluent. Basically, consistency is what I need in this, if they ever come out with this version. But the gore bits we got in My Bloody Valentine, of course, Friday the 13th came out a year prior to this movie, and Tom Savini, he opened up a door and broke some ground with the effects he did in that movie. So of course everybody and their mom was just worried about how are the kills going to look, how are the special effects going to look in this movie, and the gore bits. I would say they did a really decent job with the gore effects in the movie. You get, the opening kill, not so much. That chick, she's in her bra and she's making out with not making out with the guy, but the killer's in there and he kind of like pins her backwards and impales her on this spike that's or not the spike. I think he impales her on the pickaxe. He sticks a pickaxe in the wall and he impales her on it. And you can tell it's like rubbery and shit like that, but the effects kind of do get better as you go along. You get, one of the most memorable gore effects in the entire movie is the character Happy is trying to set up like a scare trap for the kids, basically, because they think Harry Warden's, they don't believe that Harry Warden's a thing, and they just want to party and they want to have sex and shit like that. So he sets up a fake Harry Warden in the doorway, and he keeps opening up the door and he keeps laughing. He's drunk as shit. But when the real killer comes up, he swings the pickaxe up into his chin, and it kind of comes out like his eye, and his eye is dangling off the tip of the pickaxe, and it's like he drags him along the ground, along the gravel, with the pickaxe still stuck in his head. That is good shit right there, man. That's really good stuff. You get a nail gun kill, which I guess it's not too gory, but it's just the idea of it, the fact that character didn't die right away and he was still alive and made it to his friends and then just collapsed. It's a pretty painful way to go out. You get a decapitation. The guy, Howard, his body falls down, and not only does he get decapitated, but before that, his head kind of snaps on this rope and it doesn't even come off all the way at first. And then the rest of him drops to the ground. You get some decent shit, man. You get, at the end of the movie, you get the guy, I think his name is it Axel? Is it Axel? I can't even remember. But the guy who ends up being the killer, he is like basically cutting his arm off to free himself from the rocks that have just collapsed on him at the end of the movie. When it's revealed that he's the killer, you get some decent gore effects, man. And I feel like given what we have seen in movies prior to 1981, that shit did not deserve to be cut out of a movie like My Bloody Valentine, especially a movie that was brand new to people. Even Friday the 13th got cut down by the MPAA, but it was only by a matter of seconds, and it wasn't even in a lot of scenes. But for My Bloody Valentine to be an original property, something that was brand new to horror fans, that was, going to open up doors. I don't know if they were going to do sequels for it, but, maybe it'll open up a door for another movie, which I'm pretty sure it did. Of course it did. But this, the gore effects in the movie aren't as crazy as people make them out to be for them, for the MPAA to just skewer the shit out this movie. And what we get is a very tame film. There's almost no violence in the movie at all. Like, at least no on-screen violence, really, because the opening kill where the girl gets impaled on the pickaxe, they don't show it. It's just a reaction shot, her screaming, and then you get the title card sequence. The chick Mabel that gets killed, she gets killed off screen. They find her body in the dryer just completely burnt up, but they don't linger on it as fast as as long as they do in the unrated version. You get a scene where a guy gets, he gets his head dunked in some boiling hot water where like hot dogs are boiling because they're having a party. So the guy, the killer, dunks his head in there, and his skin starts to peel off and shit like that. I don't even know why that's cut. They showed that in Halloween. Now I don't know if Halloween 2 came out before this movie, but you show that Pamela Susan Shoop getting her face boiled off in a hydrotherapy pool in Halloween 2, and it's in every version. It's in the TV version, it's in the theatrical version, it's in whatever version you want. The YouTube version, doesn't matter. It exists. That scene is shown on screen. So why that was cut out of My Bloody Valentine, I have not the slightest idea. But the movies basically, I say that to say this, man. I understand what the MPAA, what their job is here, but it is really, truly disrespectful to the people involved, man. I really feel like there should be only a certain amount of seconds or minutes that the MPAA can cut from a film. I really don't feel like they should be able to come to, I'm pretty sure they don't go to the special effects people themselves, but I really don't feel like they should be able to come to filmmakers and just tell them, you have to take this out of the movie so we can give you an R rating. It's like, let the fucking people have their vision, man. Let these extraordinary, inventive, visionary creators, man, these physical creators, let them have fun. I feel like that is the time where, the film set becomes the special effects crew's playground, man. They can do whatever they want. I feel like the directors and the writers give them a lot of liberties to play around. That's one of the things I'm sure George A. Romero used to tell Tom Savini. He said it in one of his interviews. He's like, he called him Tom Savini one day, and he's like, start thinking of ways to kill people. And it's like somebody like Tom Savini, that's like being a kid in a candy store. You get to I get to do what? I get to do whatever I want, and I can make this and make that. It's like, it's taken away, it's taken away from their craft 100%, man. And big shout out, and again, the utmost respect to these special effects people, man, because without y'all, I'm cool with practical effects. The CG's fine, but I love the, just the detail and the thought put into practical effects, man. It's one of the reasons why I like to get my bang for my buck when I buy like movies. I will watch how they make the animatronics. I will watch how they did the prosthetic makeup effects on Melinda Clarke in Return of the Living Dead. I will watch how Tom Savini and his crew do whatever it is they do. I will watch how K&B create zombies and do these head casts or full body casts to do these crazy effects, man. And I really wish the MPAA would just have more of a heart, man. I know that's like speaking unrealistically because they are assholes in my personal opinion, but I just wish they would have a lot more leniency towards horror movies, man, because horror movies aren't going anywhere. Unfortunately, for people that, can't stand them and think that they're disgusting and gore effects are nasty, this, that, and other. Well, here's a newsflash, man. They're not going anywhere, and the special effects aren't going anywhere, and hopefully they never do. We're in a day and age where CG is so popular that horror movies, they even do CG blood. And I'm very savvy on the eyes to CG blood and sometimes CG effects, but I'm team practical, man. Always have been, always will be. And again, that's not to throw shade at anybody who does visual effects, because that is another job in itself, man. And I couldn't really see myself pulling anything like that off. So kudos to you guys for even, for even being motivated enough to pull off any type of effect. But people, to say the least, man, I really enjoy just horror movies in their entirety, and that doesn't just mean the scenes they take out. That means that the effects they take out. I enjoy watching movies for what they are. I don't like going back and saying, oh, well, this is what it could have been, and da-da-da-da. Like, singing your shoulda, coulda, wouldas as far as horror movies go, and what got taken out, and what could have been, and what director's cut, and what unrated cut, whatever the case may be. It's depressing, man. It's depressing. I'd rather they just let the people make their movies. But we don't live in a perfect world, man, so that's not going to happen. But I keep hope alive, man. I keep hope alive. I really do. Especially with horror movies, man, because I love gore. I'm a gore hound. I don't need it. I mentioned movies like The Exorcist 3 and 7, which like really have like one scene of violence each. Everything else is implication. They leave it to the imagination. But I am a gore hound. If you're going to give me gore in a movie, like if I go to watch Planet Terror, I want wall-to-wall gore. If I go to watch Dead Alive and I know what I'm expecting, I want gore. Like, I want to be grossed out to the point where, not Human Centipede shit. That's not, we don't do that here. We don't do that. But if it's something like Dead Alive, Planet Terror, or Saw, or Hostel, something like that, I want, like I said, my bang for my buck. Give me that gore, man. And long live gore, man. And, I did say that I did commentary for a few of these movies I mentioned, which was Return of the Living Dead 3. And I wanted to do commentary for Texas Chainsaw Massacre 3, but I didn't. But Return of the Living Dead 3 commentary is on the Tudor Reviews podcast, people. I know I had to do some type of segue for an outro, but y'all know where to go, man. And if y'all don't, which y'all should, if y'all don't, though, check the podcast out on Anchor, Spotify, iTunes, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Overcast, Pocket Cast, Breaker, and Radio Public. Big shout out to Anchor, man. Follow me on Facebook and Instagram, Romero Tudor. Follow the Facebook movie group, The Cinemaniacs. Big shout out to the Tudor reviewers, the listeners, the lovers, man. I appreciate you guys' support 100%. I show the love and support right back every time. Y'all know that, man. Y'all should already know this by now. I'm an easygoing, fair guy, man. I will always show the love back, man, because this thing would not still be afloat if it wasn't for y'all, man. So much appreciation for y'all, man. But with that being said, people, yours truly, Romero Tudor, another episode of Tudor Reviews in a can. I'll check y'all on the next one.